There comes a time in every believer's life when you begin to wonder why certain people walked with you so far, only to suddenly turn away. You begin to question why the ones you trusted with your deepest secrets somehow became the very ones to wound you the most. But I came to tell you today, don't be shaken, don't be broken, don't be confused, because God has a divine way of exposing what you could not see on your own. God never reveals in order to shame you. He reveals in order to protect you. The same God who opened the eyes of Elisha's servant to see the fiery chariots surrounding the mountain is the same God who will open your eyes to see the motives of those who surround you. Because not everyone who smiles at you is for you, not everyone who claps for you is celebrating you, and not everyone who walks with you is walking for the same reason you are walking. Some people are attached to the gift, but not to the giver. Some are attached to your rise, but not to your responsibility. And when God begins to sift, when God begins to separate, when God begins to expose, He is not punishing you, He is protecting you. Think about Judas. Judas had to sit at the table. Judas had to eat the bread. Judas had to dip his hand in the same bowl as Jesus. Because if Judas had left too early, the betrayal would not have led to the cross. And without the cross, there would be no resurrection. Don't you understand that sometimes the fake people around you are part of the process that ushers you into your purpose? They play their role, and when the time is right, God removes the veil, and you see them for who they really are. God has a way of using circumstances to reveal hearts. Pay attention to how people respond when you're blessed. Pay attention to how they act when you're broken. Some people only love you as long as you need them. But the moment God begins to lift you, the moment the spotlight shifts, the moment your prayers begin to bear fruit, they cannot handle your increase. That's when the mask falls and you begin to see their true face. That's not an accident, that's a revelation. When God removes people, stop chasing them. When God exposes people, stop covering for them. When God reveals the fake, it is because He's preparing to surround you with the real. Better is a small circle of the faithful than a crowd of the deceitful. Better to walk with 2 who love you in truth than 10 who only love what you can give. Because when the storms come, and storms always come, the fakes will scatter, but the faithful will stand. Child of God, hear me. You don't have to expose anybody. You don't have to fight anybody. You don't have to defend yourself against anybody. Just keep walking with integrity. Keep loving with purity. Keep serving with humility. God will pull the cover back. God will remove the disguise. God will protect His purpose in you by removing the pretenders around you. And when it happens, don't cry about who left you, rejoice about who stayed. Because what is real will remain, and what is fake cannot endure the fire. There are seasons in life when the masks begin to slip, and what once seemed hidden becomes clear under the light of God's discernment. Many times we become so caught up in the outward appearances, the charming words, the easy laughter, and the promises people make, that we overlook what lies beneath the surface. But God, who sees the heart, knows that not every companion in your journey is sent to strengthen you. Some come as distractions, some as leeches, some as stumbling blocks dressed as stepping stones. That is why God has a way of revealing what you could not recognize on your own. The exposure of fake people is not to leave you wounded or bitter, but to free you from weights that would have crushed your destiny if they had stayed hidden too long. Fake people rarely reveal themselves immediately. They often study your ways, learn your language, and move close enough to appear authentic. They can sing the same songs you sing, clap at the same victories you clap at, even shed tears when you are in pain. Yet when pressure rises, when success shows up, when God's favor begins to pour, their real motives cannot remain buried. God orchestrates situations to sift intentions. He allows doors to open that test loyalty, and He allows storms to strike that test commitment. It is in those moments that the truth becomes undeniable. The ones who stood beside you for gain are exposed. while the ones who stand beside you for love are confirmed. The betrayal of Jesus by Judas remains one of the most powerful illustrations of this principle. Judas was not an outsider. He was not a stranger. He was chosen as one of the 12. He walked closely, heard the teachings, witnessed the miracles, and sat at the table of fellowship. Yet hidden in his heart was greed and disloyalty that could not survive the pressure of destiny's unfolding. God did not remove Judas early, because Judas had a role to play in pushing Jesus toward the cross, and the cross was the doorway to resurrection. In the same way, fake people sometimes linger in your circle, not because God has overlooked them, but because their eventual exposure will propel you forward. They become the unwilling instruments of transition. It is painful when the unveiling happens, the sting of betrayal, the shock of deception. The disappointment of realizing someone you trusted was never truly, for you can break your heart. But this is where God's grace meets you. The revelation is not meant to destroy you, but to deliver you. The pain is a pruning. God is cutting away what could not bear fruit, leaving space for healthier branches to grow. Your weeping may endure for a night, but in that very weeping is the cleansing of your circle, the refinement of your discernment, and the deepening of your dependence on God rather than on people. When God begins to move in your life, there is a shaking that not only changes your circumstances, but also shifts the people around you. It is in these moments that you begin to realize who was truly connected to your purpose and who was simply connected to your presence. Many individuals love the idea of walking with you as long as the path is smooth, but when the road becomes narrow or steep, they fall away. Others remain close when your hand is open to give, but when your hand closes in seasons of testing, their loyalty dries up. This is not an accident, it is a divine separation. God allows such seasons to peel away the layers of pretense and to uncover the real hearts of those around you. You may wonder why certain relationships ended so abruptly, or why the people you thought were dependable suddenly disappeared. Sometimes you even question yourself, thinking you could have done more to hold them close. But the truth is, you cannot hold what God has exposed. When God pulls back the curtain, He does it so you will not waste your energy clinging to what was never authentic. It is better to endure the loneliness of transition than to carry the weight of deceit into the next level of your destiny. When the masks fall, what is left is clarity, and clarity is a gift that protects your future. Look at how people respond in your moments of blessing and in your moments of breaking. The ones who celebrate your increase without jealousy and stand beside you in hardship without retreat are the ones whose love is genuine. The others, who only thrive when you are down or who cannot rejoice when you rise, expose themselves through their actions. God uses the changing seasons of your life like a divine spotlight, shining on the true motives of those who claim to walk with you. Your victory and your vulnerability both serve as tests of loyalty. It is not your job to expose them. You don't need to argue, to confront, or to spend your nights trying to convince anyone of their own motives. Leave that to God. He orchestrates circumstances that reveal what words could never uncover. A blessing too heavy for envy to hide will show who is truly glad for you. A storm too fierce for shallow commitment to endure will show who is truly with you. This is how God protects you, by letting the truth rise to the surface in ways you could never engineer on your own. The temptation is to mourn over what you thought you had, to grieve the loss of the familiar faces who turned out not to be what you imagined. Yet those who exit were never meant to build the next stage of your assignment. God reveals fakes not to diminish you, but to preserve you. Every exposure is a preparation, every unveiling is a protection, and every revelation is a step closer to the fulfillment of what He has spoken over your life. There are people who can imitate loyalty, but cannot sustain it. People who can imitate love, but cannot endure the test of time. God, in his infinite wisdom, will not allow you to walk blindly with those who only carry an image of truth, but lack the substance of it. That is why he allows seasons of pressure, because pressure has a way of revealing character. Just as fire reveals the purity of gold and exposes the dross, trials expose the authenticity of those around you. When your path is lit by favor and opportunity, many will rush to walk alongside you. But when the shadows of struggle appear, when uncertainty hovers, when sacrifice is required, then the real is separated from the fake. What could not be seen in comfort becomes undeniable in adversity. God often uses betrayal not as punishment, but as direction. Betrayal has a way of closing doors you would have left open, and of cutting ties you would have struggled to sever. The very act of betrayal, though painful, becomes a tool of redirection. Consider how Joseph was betrayed by his brothers. They stripped him, sold him, and abandoned him, yet their cruelty was the very path that carried him to Egypt, where his destiny would unfold. Without their envy, Joseph would never have reached the palace. Likewise, those who smile in your face but secretly resent your calling may eventually push you into places you never imagined, places where God has prepared a greater assignment. When God exposes the fake, it is not just about them. It is also about you. Exposure demands growth. It calls you to sharpen your discernment, to lean less on appearances and more on the Spirit, to stop relying on flattery and start listening for fruit. People may speak beautifully, they may dress the part, they may even serve alongside you, but Jesus said you shall know them by their fruits. God will sometimes let seasons stretch long enough to give the fruit time to reveal itself. Once the harvest comes, you see clearly who was rooted in truth and who was only pretending. Do not mistake the unveiling as a setback. It may feel like loss when relationships shift and familiar voices grow silent. But what God removes is always lighter than what he is preparing to add. You cannot carry counterfeit loyalty into authentic destiny. You cannot build a future on foundations that are cracked by envy or corroded by deceit. God clears the ground so he can plant anew. Every exposure of the false makes room for the arrival of the true. The fewer pretenders remain in your circle, the more space there is for those assigned by God to walk with you in purpose. Your strength is not in how many surround you, but in who is appointed to stand by you. Gideon's army was reduced from thousands to 300, yet with that small number God brought victory. In the same way, when the multitude thins and the masks are removed, what remains may look small, but it is strong, it is real, it is God-ordained. That is the power of divine exposure. There are moments when you must understand that the revelation of fake people is not a coincidence, but a divine intervention. God, who sees what you cannot see, steps into your story and begins to pull back the curtains that cover intentions. He does this not because he wants you to carry bitterness or resentment, but because he wants you free from attachments that cannot sustain where he is taking you. Too often, we confuse association with alignment. Just because someone walks close to you does not mean they are aligned with your destiny. They may be connected to your comfort, your resources, or your influence, but that does not mean they are committed to your assignment. God has to uncover the truth so you are not deceived by appearances. Many people wear the mask of friendship while carrying the heart of rivalry. They may applaud you in public but criticize you in private. They may encourage you with their words while secretly competing with your journey. God cannot allow such duplicity to linger around you unchecked, because it will eventually contaminate your spirit and distract your focus. So he allows a situation, a circumstance, a shift, to bring out what was always there but hidden from your natural sight. When their words no longer align with their actions, when their silence in your struggle speaks louder than their applause in your triumph, God is showing you that the connection was counterfeit. The pain of this exposure often feels like rejection, but it is really redirection. God knows that you cannot afford to carry false weight into true destiny. Think of Samson, surrounded by people who celebrated his strength but never cared about his purpose. Delilah's betrayal was not just about Samson's weakness. It was about God allowing him to see that not everyone in his bed was meant to be in his destiny. Sometimes the very people you embrace are the ones God has to reveal as dangerous, because without that revelation, you would give away secrets, treasures, and visions to those who do not value them. When God reveals, He also teaches. He teaches you that discernment is more valuable than charm, that consistency is stronger than flattery, and that faithfulness in the dark is more reliable than excitement in the light. He teaches you not to be impressed by proximity, but to be wise about purpose. Just because they are near does not mean they are for you. The enemy knows how to plant counterfeits close enough to distract you, but God knows how to unmask them before they destroy you. And when the unmasking happens, do not fight to keep what God is removing. Every fake connection removed is space created for the authentic ones to arrive. Every betrayal endured is preparation for deeper wisdom and stronger vision. Every exposure is a reminder that your trust must first be in God before it can be in people. He reveals the fake not only to protect you but also to refine you. He strengthens your spirit so that the next time someone approaches with smooth words and smiling gestures, you will not be swayed by appearance but guided by discernment. There are seasons when you cannot understand why God allows certain shifts to happen until the dust settles, and you see what was hidden all along. The people you thought were permanent often turn out to be temporary, and those you believed were trustworthy sometimes prove to be the very ones working against you. Yet none of this catches God by surprise. He allows revelation to protect your destiny and to cleanse your circle. Fake people cannot walk with you forever, because destiny will always demand truth. God exposes not to embarrass them or to break you, but to ensure you are not trapped by deception when He is trying to position you for greater. Pay attention to the subtle ways God reveals. Sometimes it is through words spoken carelessly, sometimes through silence in moments when you expected support, sometimes through the inconsistency that cannot be disguised over time. You may have overlooked it once, excused it twice, but eventually God makes it so plain that you cannot deny it any longer. What you once explained away becomes undeniable evidence that the connection was never authentic. God uses time as the great revealer. A mask can only stay on for so long before it slips, and when it does, you must have the courage to see what He is showing you. It is never easy to face the truth of betrayal or disloyalty. The sting of realizing that someone you prayed with, dreamed with, or trusted with your heart was not truly, for you can pierce deeply. But God does not reveal this truth to leave you broken. He reveals to make you wiser, stronger, and sharper in discernment. Every unveiling is a lesson. Every false connection exposed is training for your spirit. You begin to understand that your trust belongs to God first, and that people, no matter how close, must be tested by their fruit rather than their words. Consider how David's life unfolded. He was anointed to be king, yet his path was filled with people who pretended loyalty, but secretly plotted his downfall. Saul celebrated him in one moment and sought to kill him in the next. Yet God used even that betrayal to prepare David for the throne. David learned not to rely on men's applause or promises, but to lean on God's faithfulness. In the same way, when God exposes the fake around you, He is preparing you to carry greater authority, greater influence, and greater responsibility without being ensnared by deceit. The more God elevates you, the more important it becomes that your circle is refined. You cannot afford to take everyone with you, and you cannot afford to be blinded by false alliances. God loves you too much to allow hidden enemies to destroy what He has placed inside you. That is why He pulls back the curtain, reveals the truth, and sometimes even shakes your relationships until what is real stands and what is fake falls away. What feels like loss is actually protection, and what feels like rejection is actually redirection toward the people who are truly called to walk with you.